quite a turnout at this UCP rally. Originally,
Yeah.
actually, that they were expecting it to be inside. So when you got there, there's construction going on, parking's all over the place. You go into one spot, it was a high school grad, so that wasn't the spot. The other room it was originally supposed to be in, well, we couldn't go into there because they wouldn't fit. Over 1,700 people registered, but the tent that they set up for 1,700 people, well, that completely overflowed. And there's actually hundreds of people standing outside around the tent. I think it wound up, there's about 35, there's scheduled to be 37, but I think about 35 former MLAs and UCP candidates were on location. We'll have a video out soon. I actually spoke to 14 of those candidates. So asking some tough questions, but incredible. What do you make of this momentum in what is supposed to be such a hotly contested battleground to have 2,000 plus people show up at this event?
Yeah, I think it was 2,500 was the final count, sort of a rough estimate of the crowd size. It caused a
Yeah.
traffic snarl for
Oh yeah,
hours,
yeah,
which could have got them all charged with terrorism. This is Justin Trudeau's Canada, don't you know? Um,
yeah,
but you know, I think this leads to what I sort of was talking about off the top of the show, and that is that while the pollsters who seem to be oversampling Edmonton and the NDP want us to believe that Calgary is really the battleground for, I guess, the fate of the province, I'm not so sure it is. I've been talking to some contacts inside the UCP, people who are privy to internal polling, and they're saying they're happy. They're pretty
yeah,
confident. Now, Edmonton, the UCP are going to lose some seats, I think, even in some of the suburban areas where, they've really been UCP and CPC strongholds.
hmm,
Some of those are going to flip. But, rural Alberta is always going to be completely conservative. It always is. And
yeah,
in Alberta, you have to win all of rural Alberta and either Edmonton or Calgary. The
yeah,
UCP are going to take Calgary. They might lose a couple seats, but I really think on the issue of affordability, jobs, and fighting back against Ottawa, provincial autonomy, those are the winning issues for all
yeah,
Albertans, including new Albertans, people who have moved here because their own province's closeness with Ottawa has destroyed their local economy. They come here and they want a province that's going to fight back and be different. And I
yeah.
just don't think those people are being swayed by the NDP. I just don't.
Yeah. And I think that even when we were talking about Tarek and I had a conversation about where potential battlegrounds could be, I think the point is more so aside from maybe like Banff, Kananaskis, that's a little bit up in the air, and a few other places. Anything outside of Calgary and Edmonton are pretty much decided UCP. Edmonton going to overwhelmingly go NDP. That's clear. I think what we're saying is that there's a potential that Calgary's the only place where it could be swayed. But I think you're probably right. I certainly hope you're right that it won't be as much of a battleground. But you're basically, I think there's about eight ridings constituencies. Some have cited it as 12, but within Calgary there's probably 8 where there's a little bit of contention. And what you would have to have happen is I think the NDP would have to win 7 or 8 of them, basically a sweep in what are the polling is generally favoring the UCP in those ridings. A couple the NDP are a bit ahead, but you would need a very unlikely NDP sweep of Calgary to turn things. Now, likely not to be a big majority government. I mean, obviously in Alberta it will be a majority because that's how it works effectively with the 2 main party system. No one else likely, aside from the UCP ejected Johnson candidate, likely to win as an independent. So it will be a majority. It might be a small majority, but I think you are right. Tomorrow will be interesting. Alex Dhaliwal, our reporter who's been covering the election as well, will be at the I think Rise and Shine NDP rally that's taking place in Calgary, and it'll be interesting to juxtapose those and see what the turnout is like. Obviously, they could bust people out. Who knows? That's also on the weekend. But if they don't have significantly more people and it's a weekend, that'll be a pretty strong indicator.
Well, yeah, it's a rise and shine rally. Like, what time is it? NDP voters
10.
don't get up early.
I know.
That's
Yeah,
still a
10.
little
That's early
early
for
for
them.
them. It's a
Yeah.
little early for them. And that's the thing. We've seen these videos of massive UCP turnouts for their rallies. People are really
Mhm.
energized. And I think that might be the fatal flaw in the NDP's strategy of talking up their polling, is
Yeah.
that really motivates the UCP base to turn out, to get the vote out, to volunteer. People, disaffected conservatives who are like, I'm just so fed up with the UCP because of Jason Kenney, by the way. He kneecapped Danielle Smith by staying on too long. But those disaffected people who are like, they haven't earned my vote quite yet.
Yeah.
Those people will turn up on election day if they think the NDP are going to win, because they're not NDPers. They are conservatives who just really want their politicians to prove to them that they are indeed conservative. So I think this might blow up in the NDP's face. But
Yeah.
I mean, even last weekend, I poked my head into a Danielle Smith rally. Just thought, I wasn't going to do a report, but I wanted to see for myself, because I had seen earlier in the day, Danielle Smith was doing like a whistle stop campaign tour through the capital region. And, just stopping in on the local candidates, whatever. And there was an unannounced stop with only the campaign volunteers, by the way, in Sherwood Park. And I think one of those ridings in Sherwood Park is going to be a toss-up. So the NDP tweeted out this picture. Oh, Danielle Smith can't get people to turn up for like a campaign stop in the greater Edmonton area.
Mm-hmm.
It was completely unannounced. And also, what kind of weirdo are you that you're lurking in the bushes? Basically, I knew where I'm from this area, so I knew where that photo was taken. And so I was like, yeah, are you hiding behind like a lilac bush, you total weirdo?
Oh, yeah. They have people sneaking into events. I'm not joking. They have people sneaking into events. It's creepy.
100%, and they're getting caught because one of them said something to that effect to Alex Dhaliwal. Like, basically, you can't come in because the UCP kicked us out, like the NDP staffer, out of an event. And Alex is like, I'm a journalist. You're an NDP staffer. We are not the same. But anyways, I poked my head into this Edmonton event, and the venue was like, it was enormously hot that day, like super muggy. My hair was a disaster. It was just packed, like 500-600 people up the stairs, down the street. And I'm like, this is pretty good turnout momentum, even in Edmonton, where it seems that all might be lost. The UCP energy is still really high there. And I have not seen images like that from not a single NDP event, no matter how many union activists they truck in.
Yeah. And it's, what's wild is it just speaks to the continued American style lying campaign. And we can say lying now because it's not up for debate. There'll be dozens of events with hundreds of people. And then literally Jeremy Notley and the NDP staff will take a picture of like a meeting and pretend that is the type of rally that they're having. It's just so categorically dishonest. They'll say they'll take questions from everyone, then they don't take questions. They'll tell me to my face, oh yeah, 2 questions are fine. Then they'll pretend to hand me a mic and yoink it away last second. It's ridiculous, and frankly, it's embarrassing, and it's incredibly unbecoming of politics in Alberta, Canadian politics. I mean, Justin Trudeau's to blame. This sort of radicalization of politics, excluding media outlets. Listen, if there was someone within the media who was literally engaging in constant hate speech, I wouldn't have a problem with them being excluded, to be honest. But that's not what's happening here. They're taking people who are asking fair, tough questions, the same types of fair, tough questions we ask to the UCP or anyone else, by the way, and they don't want those. They want those people excluded. They only let the people in who are going to echo their talking points, people who are screaming at the UCP, having outbursts at events, making absurd allegations, like asking Danielle Smith if she's a follower of Hitler. Those people, well, they're certainly allowed and welcome into the NDP event. But if you want to ask a question about, say, the NDP cutting funding for a hospital, well, then you're not welcome. It's troubling to see, and it's a pattern that I'm shocked that NDP voters who hate the term American style anything, American style healthcare, American style gun control, American style, whatever it may be, they hate all that. But then they're engaging in this very US presidential campaign where it's all personal attacks and overt lying. We've heard numerous times allegations on the front of Pastor Arthur Pawlowski from Rachel Notley, even though I think she's been warned. She again tweeted the other day he was charged with inciting violence against police. That's also that's false. That's not what was alleged at all. So they've been lying throughout this campaign. And I think and I hope Albertans will see through it. It is very much a test of this province. If the UCP manages to win, despite the sort of conglomerate of media cabals conspiring against them, all the hysteria, all the madness, all the clips from a radio talk show, everyone has been working against Danielle Smith except for her team. We've been asking tough questions, holding her to account as well. It's going to be a strong litmus test and I've called it a test of the soul of Alberta. If it's still there, if they can look past all that, look at the policies, look at the facts, look at the economic recovery, and see the direction that this province is going, it's going to bode well for conservative politics moving forward. And I think the NDP is going to have to take a serious look at themselves. If the NDP loses, I hope that they turn into a serious party, not a radical ideological extremist party that's pushing things that frankly most Albertans don't want. I hope that they serve as a sensible counterpoint that holds the government to account instead of a radical ideological wing of the left.
This is where I will put this into context for the rest of the country and why this election is so important. So besides the fact that, if you have a government here that does not push back against the feds on the things they want to do to our energy sector, the rest of the country is far worse off. If Alberta is not busy drilling, exporting, the rest of you are far worse off because of it. Because whether you like it or not, we tend to be the economic furnace of this country, and our furnace runs on oil. And all of that affects affordability for everybody else. So you need a province that's pushing back on energy, but you also need a province that's pushing back on public safety. So Alberta and Saskatchewan sort of led the way when it came to the pushback on the latest gun grab. And then all the other provinces said, yeah, us too, yeah, us too, yeah, us too. But here's the big one that happened, I guess, probably 10 days ago now. Danielle Smith makes an announcement saying, you know what, if the feds aren't going to deal with bail, we will. We're going to start slapping ankle monitors on violent criminals who probably shouldn't be out on bail and probably shouldn't be anywhere near a school. But we have no way of knowing if they're anywhere near a school. So we're sticking ankle monitors on them because Bill Blair won't. And Marco Mendocino doesn't care. So guess what happens right away? After every single province and just about every single police force in this country begging the feds for some sort of bail reform, including putting a stop to no cash bail. You know how frustrating that is for cops, arresting the same guy over and over again, and he goes before a judge and the judge says, $50, $100 bail, but no cash. So he's out literally then, and that cop who's got better things to do is going and arresting the same local crime wave guy over and over again because they just go before JP and the JP says no cash bail and you're out again. Well, meanwhile, Tamara Leach is sitting in there for 50 days. She said, Danielle Smith makes an announcement saying, look, the feds aren't doing anything about bail reform. We technically can't do anything about bail reform, but we can make it harder for offenders who are released in Alberta. And so she did. And what happens, maybe 72 hours later, the feds announced bail reform. So she did that. Somebody had to say, okay, the feds aren't doing this, we're gonna, and it shames the feds into doing something because all of a sudden, Bill Blair's like, oh, heck, that lady who doesn't like us, who's running Alberta, is actually doing something good. And then it forced the hand of the feds. And so a freer, stronger Alberta led by someone who believes in freedom and liberty and public safety is going to make the rest of the country better because it will force the hands of the feds.
That's a clip from something we call Rebel News Daily. It's our daily live stream hosted by my friend David Menzies, but the show also includes a rotating cast of hosts and special guests, including me. It's a great way for us to talk about the news of the day as the news is happening in an unscripted fashion, and it's an awesome way for you to interact with us as well. We stream every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Mountain, wherever you find Rebel News. See you there.